What's up, guys? EDA Talk Sports here, back with another video, and this time we're back with another UFC event. It's a fight night. This time, two welterweights will be fighting: Colby Covington versus Joaquin Buckley, and both of these men are not shy of expressing how good they are, how good they believe they are, and what they believe they're going to do within the welterweight division. Colby's been telling us for however long he's going to be champion, he's going to win, he's had his opportunities, he hasn't taken it, and that's why he's in a position where he has to fight a Joaquin Buckley, because he really wouldn't choose to do so. But this is the best of a bad bunch for him. And for Joaquin Buckley, this is the opportunity he's been waiting for, the big matchups, the fight night main events. He experienced it and tasted it previously. Now he's getting the biggest name he would have fought, and it's going to be very, very interesting to see if he can keep on this climb. So, guys, we're going to take a look at the card first, skim through it, give our, I'll say, stacks rating. How good of a card do we think this is overall, top to bottom? And then we're going to get into the nitty gritty. Don't be surprised if we speed through the card. So, obviously, starting off with the main event, Covington versus Buckley, two welterweights that we're very excited to see how they're going to go up against each other. Cub Swanson and Billy Quarantillo in the co-main event, which is a little bit of a surprise, if I'm being honest with you. Manel Kape, Bruno Silva, which I think is going to be a really good fight. For the flyweight division, Victor Petronia versus Dustin Jacoby is another fight that could be very, very interesting. Jacoby will get into. He's had not the best time of it lately. Yanez versus Marcos should be another good one. Sterling versus Tokas. Sterling, this is going to be his UFC debut, so it's going to be very interesting to see how he goes about it. Michael Johnson versus Aztar. Joe Alvarez versus Dakar Close, which is again going to be a really, really good fight. These two prelim fights I'm really looking forward to. Sean Woodson, who I haven't seen in a little while actually, will be fighting as well in the prelims. Any other prelims that we should focus on? Miranda Maverick will be fighting, and Davy Grant also will be fighting. So a couple of good fights there. In terms of how stacked, I would say main event is an okay one. Home event is I'm not really that excited for that one, if I'm being honest with you. I'd give this like maybe a five, a four, a five. I'd say a five. A five seems fair in terms of how stacked. As mentioned, we're going to take a look firstly, starting off with the main event, and then we're going to be covering some of the other fights in the card. Obviously, Colby Covington, Joaquin Buckley, we've covered each, and I think I'm going to start with Joaquin Buckley. His rise to where he is now, number 9 in the welterweight rankings, did not come easy. A lot of hard work, a lot of victories, a lot of development, and I remember him bursting onto the scene, as mentioned, as a fighter with that killer knockout. And from then on, you thought, okay, this could be someone very, very special. As mentioned, he's had some difficult times, but he's bounced back. And now, if you look at his win streak and the names that he has on his resume, he's deserving of this opportunity. His last loss was to Chris Curtis. I remember that very, very vividly. I thought he was actually going to beat Chris Curtis quite comfortably. He didn't. And it was a crossroads for him in terms of how he was going to progress. And obviously, coming to welterweight now, he's flourishing. He wins. I think the ones that stand out to me are the Vicente Luque win and obviously the Stephen Thompson win. Big, big victories for him. Both finishes, and it puts him in good stead going forward, because the UFC are looking for finishers. They are looking for people who can dominate and create exciting fights, and Joaquin Buckley has done that recently. He will be going up against a Colby Covington who has not fought. It's probably been over a year now, if I'm not mistaken. It's coming up to just about a year when he will be fighting Joaquin Buckley. His last fight was obviously against Leon Edwards. Was less than desirable for Colby. The lead up wasn't desirable with, trash talking Leon Edwards' dad, and I mean his dad was dead, so there was no real need for that. And then into the fight, he showed absolutely nothing. Leon essentially dominated him from round 1 to round 5, and the spiel, the gimmick, is starting to wane. You need to back it up with success. You can talk a good game, but when it comes to actually backing it up, it hasn't been the best for him. Obviously, the loss to Edwards, the win against Masvidal and Woodley, two people who aren't even in the UFC anymore. You look at the amount of fights, he literally fights once a year. And it's either, him headlining an event or it's for the championship. And it's a good place to be in, I guess, for him, because he's got the recognition of the UFC, and he brings in a bit of clout for the UFC. I think, like, maybe the ticket sales don't go up as much as you may expect, but he generates online buzz and online interest. And how long is it going to last? I don't know. As you can see from the 3 title fights that he's had, I'm going to specify on those which were for the full title, not the interim title. Usman twice and Leon Edwards, those are 3 championship defeats. He obviously did win the interim against RDA, and you can't take away from the people he had beaten before. However, against the elite and for the undisputed championship, he has been found wanting. Now, what is the method for victory for each man? Well, Joaquin Buckley is more well-rounded and has developed to be more well-rounded as time has gone on. He can definitely hold himself on the ground. I don't think he would want to be there as often as Colby might want to be. Definitely not. However, I think he believes he can hold his own on the ground and on the feet. If he's able to catch Colby with a power punch, it could be an early night. Definitely, he's shown the power before. There's no reason he can't knock out Colby. It's not been done often, but it's been done, and Kamaru Usman is an example of that as well. So Joaquin Buckley has 2 methods for victory. Obviously, Joaquin Buckley obviously has a method for victory. It's going to come through hard work. Let me be honest with you. It's going to come through hard work. And this is a 5-round fight. This is where cardio Colby normally shows his best, if we're being honest with you. In these 5-round fights, as they get longer and the opponents get more tired, he shows his quality. Same thing happened against Masvidal. But one thing I've seen about Buckley, and I used to, because I've been watching him from pretty much his first UFC fight, he doesn't get as discouraged as he used to get. He used to get really discouraged. Like in 2 rounds, if he wasn't doing what he needed to be doing, he'd be visibly upset. He may have, down tools to a degree. Now, when he knows things aren't going his way, he's continuously going until he gets what he thinks he deserves, and it's worked for him in recent history, to say the least. I'm leaning towards Buckley. I think there's a key deficiency. His wrestling, as mentioned, isn't bad, but Colby's is on another level from what we have historical evidence on. If Colby is able to get Joaquin into that space where he's chasing him, where he's executing his wrestling at a high level, this could be a long 5-round fight where Joaquin doesn't have a lot of success. However, if he stays dogged, if he stays determined, if he continues to harass Colby in a way that he doesn't like it, then you could have Buckley climbing and being close to that top 5 spot in the welterweight division. Guys, it's going to be a good one. I'm going to go with Joaquin Buckley. I want to see it. I hope I see it. And he's not necessarily my favorite UFC fighter in the world. However, Colby is far from that. So I'm going to go with Joaquin Buckley. A bit of bias there, but I do think he's been the more active. He's shown his quality. He's fought against high level opposition, and he's proven that he can hang with them. And there's no reason why he can't with Colby. But Colby has that wrestling advantage, which can severely disrupt Joaquin Buckley's game plan. Next up, Cub Swanson versus Quarantillo. And again, this isn't one that I was overly looking forward to. Obviously, 2 UFC, I would say, legends, icons, however you want to put it. 2 people have put their blood, sweat, and tears into their craft. And again, it wasn't one I was expecting. Cub Swanson, obviously, I've been watching for an absolute age. Billy as well. I've been watching a number of his fights. And so this fight should be a good one. I'm hoping it is going to be a good one. We're first going to cover Cub Swanson and check out how he's been performing. It's been a bit up and down for him. I don't think his level of performances have waned necessarily in terms of fight to fight. The Jonathan Martinez one is one that stands out where it wasn't great. The Giga Chikadze again was one where Giga was in a zone and a flow where he was just demolishing everybody. But the wins against Elkins and Dawudu are 2 which cannot be ignored. He's still got it at the age of 41. He's still performing at a high level, and this fight might just be right down his alley, with Billy coming in and having a bit of an up and down story himself. So obviously you can see they've both got a similar record in their last 5. Wins against Jackson and Hernandez, and losses against Zalal, Barboza, and Shane Burgos. And again, not bad quality of opponents to be losing to. I think this is a good matchup for both men. I feel like Club has advantages in a number of different areas that Billy may not do. However, I do think Billy is the better striker. He's the more over-round, cleaner striker. He's shown it on occasions. But I'm pulling for Cub here. I'm not gonna lie for you. Cub is a legend to me. I've watched him from literally the beginning of me watching UFC all the years back, and I think he has the ability to continue to wind back the clock and show his quality. But Billy is gonna be a very very hard opponent for Cub to get over. Next up, Manel Kape versus Bruno Silva. And it's been a while since we've seen Camp. The last time we saw him, I think, well, I know he lost. It was against Mohamed Makayev, and they had a really good build up. I mean, they really sold the fight. I think it was definitely real for Camp, real for both men. For us, we thought it was a bit of give and take. What's going on? How's it gonna go? And they said that we're going to fight in the middle of the ring as soon as the bell rings. We're going to scrap, and that really wasn't what happened. It was a 3-round wrestling fest, and Camp Wars came out on the end of it with a loss. He hasn't been as active as I think I would have liked. Bruno Silva is a rising star in the flyweight division. We're going to check out both men very quickly, what they've been doing in recent times as well. Mohamed Makayev, as we've mentioned, was the last person to beat Manel Kape. He was on a very good run, if I'm not mistaken. Yes, a 4-fight undefeated win streak for him, and he was flying. And the Mohamed Makayev fight was a detractor. He's now, I think, ranked number 9 in the division, which is a far shout from where he was. At one point he was one fight away from fighting for the title, and it's a surprise that he's dropped so far. But when you're fighting again pretty much once a year for the last 2 years, and then you look back to 2021 where he's fought 4 times in a year, you can understand why at one point he was very close to fighting for a title. However, he's not in that position again. I've mentioned Bruno Silva, the up and rising star in the UFC, and he is on a 4-fight unbeaten streak. We've covered a number of his previous opponents before in other reviews, but I really have enjoyed the way he's gone about his business in the flyweight division, and I want him to beat Manel Kape. I like Manel Kape as a fighter. I just think this guy brings a different zeal and energy that Manel Kape hasn't brought in the last couple of fights, and because we only see him once a year, it's very hard to judge. But Bruno Silva in his last 2 appearances has been sensational. 2 finishes in his last 2, and four finishes in his last 4 are very impressive. He has a skill set where I think again he's proficient on both the ground and the feet. That's something that is a surprise. I think how proficient he is on the feet was a surprise to me. The knockouts he's getting at flyweight are very very impressive, and he also has the ability to take you down, wrestle, and submit you. I'm going with Bruno Silva for the win. It's hard for me to bet against Manel Kape. However, I've got to do what I've got to do. Victor Petrino versus Dustin Jacoby. Again, this is a fight that is very, very interesting. Victor was someone that I was very, very high on before his last fight, and that last fight was a loss to Anthony Smith, less than desirable from his standpoint. He was on the climb, he was on the rise, and that was unfortunately halted from a very, swift and efficient submission by Anthony Smith. But you look at Anthony Smith's last couple of fights, Victor would be very, very disappointed that he lost that fight. On the other hand, Dustin Jacoby has had an awful time of it as recent, and I will show it to you guys. Where are we? Here we are. So as you can see, Dustin Jacoby in his last 5 has lost his last 4. Dominic Reyes, Alonzo Metafield. He's got the 1 win against Nzechukwu. Another loss there against Roundtree. So it's not uncommon for him to actually, be in this position. And so for Dustin Jacoby, the pressure is on. 4 losses in your last 5, you lose another one, you could be out of the UFC. And again, he's got a high, heavy kickboxing style. It will be interesting to see how that works against Petrona, because if he gets his hands on him and takes him to the ground, it could be a very, very short night for Dustin Jacoby. Interesting to see how this goes. I'm going to go for Petronia. I think he will like to bounce back. He's the younger man. He has a lot on the line here. So does Dustin Jacoby, but Dustin is not going to be fighting for a title in his UFC career, if we're being honest. His time has come and gone, and Victor, he can't afford another loss to a veteran So I'm going with Victor for the win. Adrian Yanez versus Marcos. And Adrian Yanez has been a person who, again, has been very much appreciated from the UFC faithful. He has had a difficult time of it as of recent. He did bounce back in his last fight. However, before then, a loss to Jonathan Martinez and Rob Font were less than desirable. 2 knockouts back to back, again, was not what we were looking for Adrian Yanez. There was like one time he was, having a little bit of beef with Sean O'Malley, and it looked like we could potentially see him and O'Malley fight, and that would be a top contender fight or top prospect fight, I should say. However, that wasn't the case, and Yanez went on to have those devastating losses to two people who are ranked in the top 15, or who were ranked in the top 15 at the time. And so those fights would have, continued to push him up the totem pole within the bantamweight division. However, that wasn't to be his road, and so this is his road. He's going to be going up against Daniel Marcos, and Daniel Marcos, again, is somebody I've watched a couple of times. Notably, I remember his split decision win against Davy Grant, and I thought to myself, well, how good can you be if you're going against Davy Grant and going to split decision? However, he did put it on Davy Grant at times. He did show his quality at times, and Davy Grant is not someone who's going to roll over and give you the victory. Everything is going to be hard fought. Against Adrian Yanez, it's going to be interesting to see the clash of styles. We'll take a look at the numbers. You can see the output from both men is exceedingly high, 6.5 significant strikes for Yanez. We know he's a striker. He loves to strike. I don't think we're going to see any ground game or ground attacks from either man. It's going to be straight swinging. That's what we like to see. Adrian Yanez, as much as he can catch you, he can get caught. It's going to be very, very interesting to see how this goes down. I'm going to go with a bit of bias here because I like Adrian Yanez. I'm going to go with Adrian Yanez for the win. Next up, Sterling versus Tokas. And again, you may not be aware of Sterling. I believe this is going to be his UFC debut. He has been pictured and videoed with Israel Adesanya. I believe he will be coming from the City Kickboxing camp, if I'm not mistaken. And again, I haven't seen one thing of him, so I'm not going to act like I have. However, I'm very, very interested to see how he performs. A main card slot in his debut should be very interesting. Tokas, I think I've seen on occasion. However, I think this is going to be a great time for us to exactly understand what we can get from him and against this prospect. So looking at Sterling very quickly, he did fight on Dana White's Contender Series, won that fight. He also was fighting on the local circuit in New Zealand as well. Toka as well, if we get a read on his last couple of performances, lost in his most recent one, and again, this will be his second fight actually in the UFC after some of the fights that he's done outside of the organization. So this was going to be a really interesting fight. I'm going to go with Sterling. I'm going to go with the young man to get the victory. I'm only going to cover 2 of the prelim fights just out of time and a little bit of interest. Michael Johnson, I mean, absolute legend against Astar. We're going to take a look at Michael Johnson very, very quickly. Absolute legend, as mentioned, did win his last fight earlier this year against Flowers. Again, a bit of it in different form, but if you're saying in his last 5, he's won 3, lost 2. This gives him an opportunity to, improve the current record and continue to push on. Obviously, legend for what we've seen. The amount of fights he has, the legendary fights, he's always going to put on a performance. If he's getting knocked out or knocking someone out, it's going to be a good one for sure. Looking at Astar, again, he's on back-to-back losses. Matt Favola being one of them, back-to-back finishes. Michael Johnson hopefully will add to that, and that will be his 3rd one on the bounce. However, before then, he had had a 2 fight win streak in the UFC, beating Karma Worthy as one of those victories. So it will be interesting, but I'm going with Michael Johnson, no doubt about it. I'm trusting him to be the veteran that he is. Take out Astar, and I mean, I'd love to see him continue fighting. I think at 38, he's probably at the latter stages of his career, definitely. But if you can give us another couple of years, another couple exciting fights, he's one of the reasons that you will probably be more willing to actually tune into the prelim. So yeah, let's see more Michael Johnson as time goes on. The final fight that we're going to cover, and one that I'm very, very excited about, is going to be Joe Alvarez versus Dakara Close. And 2 people that I've watched quite a bit. Alvarez, long rangey striker, has a very, very efficient style about his game. Not a lot of wasted energy, can hit hard also. Dakara Close again, he's in there, he's a feisty one. I think the key thing for me in this fight is look at the height difference, look at the reach difference. Going to be very, very interesting to see how Close deals with that. I don't think he's going to have him himself, he won't be faced at all. He's very strong-willed from what I've seen in the interviews that I've seen of him, and I feel like he was going to look at this as being a challenge, but it's quite the challenge. First, we're going to look at Joe Alvarez, see how he's performed in his last couple of fights. The win against Brenner and the Kessie as well. The loss to Arman Sarukian, which is, again, no knock on that. However, it was 2 years ago. And so the climb for Joe Alvarez is definitely going to be there. Dakara Close, who is actually one of my favorite, like, I'll say prelim unknown fighters, or not unknown to those who actually watch MMA, but to those who are just casual fans, one of my favorites. And he is on a 4-fight winning streak at the moment. Wins against Silva in his last fight. And again, Dakara Close, I think, is going to put on a show. I'm not saying he's going to win, but I always enjoy his fights. He's always putting on a good fight. He's always tough, rugged, determined, and I expect no difference here. We've already covered all of the remainder fights when we were stacking the card. Hopefully they're going to be good prelims. I'm going to be catching them all, guys. I'm going to be coming to you with a review as well. One thing I want to know from you guys, please leave a comment. What is your fight of the night? Please let me know. Is it the main event? Is it one of the prelims? Is it something else? Just let me know. I want to know. Guys, make sure to like, subscribe, and comment. I'll catch you soon. It's been EDA. Peace.